As a part of receivables concepts, we have seen how to create invoice and standard receipt creation also. So let's see how to create the manual credit memo first. So when we talk about credit memo, we discussed in receivables for any purpose. With any purpose, if you want to do the amount related correction, we use credit memo, or else it could be sales returns. In case of sales returns, whenever you perform the activity called as sales returns in order management, that process will trigger credit memo creation in receivables automatically. These are the cases where we see credit memo creation. So now to create the credit memo, what we will do is first we'll create one transaction, say with $10,000. And if you want to reduce $1,000 from 10,000, we can create the credit memo transaction. 1,000. So to test credit memo creation, it's a completely manual process. Later we'll see how to create credit memo without entering the data. Means you no need to create the credit memo to reduce the amount from the transaction. Directly from transaction amount itself, you can reduce, system will create the credit memo. You see how to create the credit memo automatically. Create transaction with the 10,000. Go to billing task. Receivables, billing. So you create transaction. The same process, we are going to create one more transaction. Select transaction source. Select customer. Provide description. Enter quantity. We plan transaction with the 10,000. Same you can enter as a unit price. Since only one quantity, the transaction amount would be 10,000. Say complete and review, or say complete and close. After creating transaction, we are going to create the credit memo with $1,000. The transaction number is 1001. Let's make a note. Create credit memo with $1,000. Go to task list. Click on create transaction. So you want to create the transaction as a credit memo. Select transaction class as credit memo. Select source as a ERP3 credit memo transaction source. Select customer. Amex. It's not Amex, Max, right? Select customer. enter the line information. You can write as a correction. See, you may not reduce one quantity, but you can just give as a one quantity or reality what exactly how much quantity you are reducing. You can enter the details. So minus $1,000. So complete and close. So after creating the credit memo, we need to apply this credit memo on the transaction. So make a note of credit memo number also. Now we have transaction ready, credit memo ready. The credit memo we have to apply on the transaction so that $1,000 can be reduced. To apply the credit memo on the transaction, go to accounts receivable. And go to task list. We have credit memos section. Under that, we have one task called as manage credit memo applications. Manage credit memo applications. Click on the task. Now search for the transaction number. For which transaction number we are searching? The transaction, we want to reduce the transaction amount $1,000. With $1,000, what are the transaction we created as a credit memo that we have to find out. Better you can filter with the customer name. Yeah. So we are finding the credit memo transaction. First, you find the credit memo transaction. This transaction you can apply on open transaction. Select, click on edit. Now this credit memo we want to apply on which transaction, that we have to select by clicking on add open receivables. Add open receivables. So based on this credit memo, if you want to issue the refund, we have a separate concept called as a refund. So you have one credit memo. So the credit memo is created based on the sales returns. Against that credit memo, you want to issue the refund to customer. In that case, you can issue the refund. So credit memo system creates automatically based on sales returns. Sales returns takes place in order management. System creates credit memo in the receivables based on that action. So if you are going to refund the amount to customer based on the credit memo, you can use issue refund tab and you can issue the refund. Now we are going to adjust. Click on add open receivables. So you want to adjust this $1,000 on which transaction? Transaction number 1001. Select, click on add, click on done. Save it. So we applied credit memo transaction on invoice transaction. That's how we can reduce the balances. Now against 1001 invoice transaction, amount due is $9,000. Now from the same transaction, I want to reduce one more 1,000. I don't want to create the credit memo. I need the simple solution to reduce. For that, we can use automatic credit memo transaction creation process. So now, as per this transaction, we have outstanding balance 9,000 only, since we reduced 1,000. From 9,000, we want to reduce one more 1,000. Let's see how to do it. Go to billing workbench, or you can call it as a transaction workbench also. Click on billing task. And here is the task. Credit transaction. The task name is credit transaction. Click on credit transaction. And you want to reduce the amount from which transaction? Invoice transaction number is 1001. Search. Filter with the customer name. And find out the original transaction. Now, if you look at the transaction number 1001, the original amount is 10,000. There is some activity performed on this transaction, that is credit memo, and current balances are only 9,000. Now from 9,000, we are going to reduce one more 1,000. When you reduce 1,000, system should create credit memo with which transaction source and with which transaction type, that we have to specify. Since this transaction belongs to invoice transaction source, it is taking same. But once you do the correction, system should generate credit memo transaction. Under credit memo section, you select transaction source as credit memo. And transaction type also credit memo. And scroll little down. Here you can see the transaction under amount section. The original amount is 10,000. Current balance is 9,000. Now, how much you want to reduce from 9,000? That you can enter here. I want to reduce 1,000. I'm entering as a minus 1,000. Or else what we can do is, you can enter percentage also. If you enter percentage, you have to enter the percentage on original amount. We entered amount, automatically system is calculating 1,000 means how much percentage on original amount. 10% automatically system is taking. You may enter percentage how much you want to reduce, or directly you can enter the amount. If you are going to reduce $1,000, this would be the remaining balance, 8,000. So this is how you can specify the transaction source, and you can update the amounts how much you want to enter. Once you click on complete and close, automatically system will create credit memo against 1001 transaction by using this transaction source and type by taking these inputs. Now click on complete and close. So system created credit memo transaction number as 1002. So 1002 is credit memo transaction number. We'll go and review the credit memo transaction which system generated based on the given inputs. Go to manage transactions. select your customer, check what are the transactions are available with the customer. The invoice transaction we created, manual credit memo we created, and 1002 system created, and it is taking the original transaction number reference and it is creating the credit memo. System created credit memo. You may open and review the data. Okay. So the quantity is taking based on the ratio percentage. So that's how we can create manual credit memo and automatic credit memo within the receivables. So we have another option where credit memo can be created in receivables based on order management sales returns activity. So that's all about credit memo story. So credit memo, yes. Okay, we just as a point of discussion, we just given this note reality. We tested how to create manual credit memo, how to create automatic. So let's talk about debit memo transaction. So debit memo transaction is similar to invoice transaction. Why we use debit memo when we have invoice transaction? So we use the debit memo to add the amount to existing transaction. Say we have one transaction with $10,000. And we know once we update, once we update certain information against the transaction, that could be credit memo creation against the transaction, or else a receipt application, or you may perform accounting. Whenever you perform these activities against the transaction, we cannot update the transaction amount. So you create a transaction with the 10,000 and you performed accounting. Later you realized the transaction amount should be 11,000. So $1,000 are missing in the transaction. So that amount you can add by using debit memo. And in the debit memo, you can give original transaction reference number. When we talk about debit memo, you can say we create debit memo to add the amount to existing transaction. We create the debit memo to add the amount to existing transaction, but reality it is not true. Purpose wise it is true. I would say we create debit memo to add the amount to existing transaction. Yes, I create the debit memo with $1,000 by referring this transaction. After creating the debit memo by referring this transaction, if I go and check the balances within the transaction, the 10,000 will remain. The $1,000 you can see only in the debit memo. So based on the purpose, you can define debit memo means to add the amount to existing transaction, we can create the debit memo. So this is the one case where we can use the debit memo. Another case when we deal with the reversals. Here also system will create the debit memo. We'll see like when we deal with the receipt reversal concept. The purpose wise, you can take to add the amount to existing transactions, we use the debit memo. In receivables, we use debit memo only with positive sign, we can say. use debit memo with only positive sign. If you want to use the debit memo with a negative sign, yes, pretty much possible. When you create the debit memo transaction type, you can set which sign is required. But by default, we use with a positive sign. Now, we'll create one debit memo. Already we have transaction with 1001. Against the transaction, we created two credit memos. We reduced the amount to 8,000 by creating two credit memos with 1,000 and 1,000. Now we want to add $1,000 to the same transaction. So with this example, we'll create the debit memo transaction. Let's see how to create the debit memo. So task name is create transaction. Select transaction class as debit memo. Select transaction source, debit memo, and customer name. Description you may write as addition, quantity 1, how much you want to increase. You want to increase by $1,000. Now it is similar to invoice transaction. Only you can provide reference. Go to show more. Under show more, if you select show more, under that section, you can find miscellaneous tab. Go to miscellaneous tab. And here we have one field called as cross reference. Cross reference. Enter that number here. So this is how you can update the cross reference number to debit memo by referring. You are creating this credit debit memo to add the amounts to which original transaction. Rest of process remain same. Only the point is we are giving the reference number. If you give reference number, system will add that amount to original transaction? No. Just for information purpose, when you generate the reports, you can have that information. You can have a clue why that debit memo created in the system. So you will see that reference number, accordingly you can understand it. That's all. So that's all about how to create the debit memo transaction. We'll see how to create invoice transaction with memo lines. Invoice transaction with memo lines. Go to create transaction. Process remains same. Only line level we are going to select memo line. That's all. Invoice transaction source. Select customer. Here we have one field called memo line. Nothing but standard memo lines. Standard memo lines. So select the memo line whatever we created. We created memo line called ERP Event Management Services. So system is defaulting the description based on the memo line. Enter quantity. and unit price. Now, so we configured auto accounting rules. We have configured auto accounting rules. Let's go to auto accounting rules. Here is the revenue account type rule. So account given as 40110. Any account, any revenue account. Now, what system will do is system will take this account only. For the transaction what we are creating, revenue account system will take whatever available in the auto accounting rule. But my requirement is system should take the revenue account from memo line. Go to memo line definition. Find out the memo line. Open. Now, the requirement is whenever we create the transaction, whatever the revenue account is available in the memo line, that system should derive and it should create accounting entry. That means here is a revenue account. This account can be different from the account what we are setting in the auto accounting rule. So now what we have to do is, if that is a requirement, here we have to select source as standard lines. If you give source as a standard lines for account, or else for remaining segments also you may give, or else you can just accept the defaults. That's fine here. Company is different company, but we are trying to understand the concept, no issues. If I give account take from standard lines, memo lines, now what system will do is whenever you create the transaction, system will check for which memo line is available within the transaction. It will go to that memo line, whatever the account we have, it will take, or else for entire receivables revenue, you can give source as a standard lines. Entire code combination will take, or else if you want to take only account, you can give as a standard lines for segment called as account. So if you are using the memo line within the transaction, if you want to take the accounting, if you want to derive the accounting from memo line, mostly you may use revenue account derivation from memo lines. Then you have to set up auto accounting rule to meet the requirement. Then system will take the revenue account from memo lines. And again, if you don't have revenue account here, and system will fail. Okay, system will fail. That's how it works. So I don't provide any revenue account here. I'm saving. But in the auto accounting rule, I want to take account from memo lines. One second. So I want to take revenue account from memo lines. Now go to revenue account. The standard lines. Done. Now memo line level, you don't have any account, but you are telling to the system, please take revenue account from memo line. Now save it. And complete and review. The transaction is associated with at least one invalid closed transaction distribution. Enter valid transaction distribution. It is failing to create revenue account code combination. Go to action. We are telling to the system through auto accounting rule, take revenue account from memo line. Here memo line is there, but within that memo line, revenue account code combination is not available. So system is failing. In that case, we have to enter through manual process. We have to enter through manual process. Here is the revenue account code combination. See, account it is not able to fetch. The rest of segments, yes, we have a constant values as per auto accounting rule. So here for revenue, we don't have. So this is how manually you have to select if auto accounting rules are not able to derive because of some issue. Say save and close. Save it. We'll go on to reset to same, some constant value. So event planning revenue account. Save and close. So this is how we can configure auto accounting rule as per requirement. Or else the client requirement could be they want to derive revenue account from customer side. Customer side. Then here select revenue. Not only revenue, any it could be receivables or revenue or a specific segment value. So here you may give site. Save it. Now if I create the transaction, if site level, if this revenue account is not available, it will fail to create accounting. Go to customer record. Go to manage customers. And click on site number. Site details. Under site details, if you scroll little down, here we don't have any assignment. Yes, in the previous instance, we did the assignment. Still, we are able to create the transactions. System is deriving the accounting based on the auto accounting rules. Now the rule is take revenue account from site. If you don't assign revenue account here, system will fail. So if you set auto accounting rule, take from customer site, you have to assign this site to business unit. Say okay. Now, if you create the transaction, system will look for revenue account from the site, from this customer site. Yes, account is available. It will create the accounting, or else before that it will create the distribution, you can say. It can create the distribution. Based on the distribution accounts, we can create the accounting entry. Okay. If you create the new transaction, or else complete and review. Just duplicate it. And say complete and review. Now just you can review the distributions. Is fetching from the customer site also. Site level, whatever the account we have, that account system is fetching. So transaction type, already we have account code combination, customer site, and standard lines or standard memo lines. Salesperson, it is not within our receivables. It is related to sales applications, but just be aware of it. The salesperson level also you can provide the accounts, and you can ask the system to derive the account from the respective salesperson. When you are recording the transaction, you will just when it's like a revenue, ideally we derive from the salesperson. When you create the receipt, you will be giving the salesperson name. Then system will try to derive it. Okay. Even you can give the receipt point of view, it's a different story. As a part of transaction also you can provide, since these rules are applicable for transaction. You provide in the receipt also, but accounting point of view, you have to just make sure. So who is the salesperson to just bring that sales on the table? Accordingly, system can derive the account also. So some clients, they go with a transaction type based derivation. Some clients, they go with a customer site based account derivation. That's the reality. You can keep site, or else you can set the constant value. Anything is fine. Sometimes what happens is we may not just set saying that take from transaction type. They may have only one transaction type. Their requirement could be different. Take simple example. Here we say this company into some event planning services, and they want to identify the revenue based on the classification of the events. Okay, one is, say something like corporate events. The second one is, say, other than corporate. Their requirement is they want to derive the revenue corporate and other events. corporate events and other events, we want to derive the revenue separately. So in that case, what we can do is we can create two separate transaction types. We can create two separate transaction types. Transaction type level itself, you can give separate revenue accounts. And in the auto accounting, you can say take revenue account from transaction type only. Create the transaction type as means for corporate event related billing. To create, set all the values as required. Assign to your business unit. Here select separate revenue account which points corporate event revenue. And create another transaction type as just other. And assign, and here you select different revenue account. In the auto accounting rule, you say take the revenue account from transaction type. Now, whatever the transaction you are using, whatever the transaction type you are using to record the transaction, from the transaction type, system will derive the revenue account. So that's how you can deal with the different transaction types and you will be able to achieve the accounting requirements. It's not like you create one transaction type and you will tell to the system take from transaction type. So based on the requirement, you may create multiple invoice transaction types. Accordingly, you can derive the revenue. So these are the points we have to understand. Fine, we have seen how to create transaction with memo lines. Let's talk about chargeback. Let's talk about chargeback. So chargeback also similar to invoice transaction. But in case of some scenario, we use this chargeback concept. So take the example. There is one transaction against one customer with $25,000. And today is the due date. Today is the due date. And customer paid only 5,000. That means we received payment only 5,000. Now we apply this 5,000 on the transaction. The transaction balance will get updated. Outstanding would be 20,000. Today is the due date for entire $25,000. But what customer is doing? Customer is paying 5,000 and customer is requesting us to pay the remaining amount with a new due date. Customer is asking, give some time, I'll make the payment, but don't treat for remaining amount today as a due date. Reality, today is the due date. Total $25,000. Today is the due date, but customer paid only 5,000 and customer is requesting, so give me some time, I'll pay remaining amount. That means customer is asking to postpone the due date. Postpone the due date. So if you want to postpone the due date, you cannot update that information within the same transaction since you have created and applied the receipt on the transaction. If you want to give the new due date for remaining amount, you have to create the separate transaction. You have to create the separate transaction with 20,000. So if you create one more transaction with the 20,000, what about this amount? So this amount you have to close. You have to make it as a 0. That amount you have to close 20,000 in the original transaction. Thus, with the same amount, you have to open the new transaction. Reason we want to give the new due date. So in the original transaction, whatever the outstanding amount we have, that amount we have to close. With the same closed amount, we have to open the new transaction. So when you create the transaction, it means we are charging to customer. When you create the transaction, we are billing, we are charging, we are invoicing, all are same. So we are charging to customer. When customer is requesting to postpone the due date, again you are creating one more transaction, of course, for remaining amount. That means we are charging again. Since we are charging again, this transaction you call as chargeback transaction. Again, we are charging with some reason to update the due date for remaining outstanding amount. So this transaction we call as chargeback transaction. So we no need to create the chargeback transaction. Automatically system creates chargeback transaction. Just we have to perform chargeback activity. Just we have to update how much amount need to be charged back and with which new due date. Okay, we have to perform chargeback activity. So based on the inputs which you provide in the chargeback activity, automatically system creates chargeback transaction. This will be created by system. System will create chargeback transaction. The system creates chargeback transaction. And to support this process, how much amount we are going to charge back, we need to maintain one receivable activity. We need to maintain one receivable activity where system can identify how much amount we are going to charge back. For that, create one receivables activity. Create receivables activity for chargeback. So chargeback means to postpone the due date for the remaining amount. Remaining amount you can call as open item also. So a bit technical term as per application. Simply we call as open item. Open item means remaining amount, outstanding amount. To postpone the due date for remaining open item, the new transaction what we create that we call as chargeback transaction. When system create chargeback transaction, system first it will close the open transaction with the same amount, it creates chargeback transaction. First, we'll see a receivable activity for chargeback. Go to receivables activities. Manage receivables activities. So let's review what are the receivable activities are available, which are created by system. Check search criteria. Select financial services BU and check. Now, If you want to create new receivable activity, yes, you can create, or else what we can do is here automatically system is creating one receivable activity as a chargeback adjustment that we can use. If you want to use this, you have to provide the account here. To provide chargeback account. Open it. Okay, it is taking activity type as adjustments. So set activity GL account and set to none. Select chargeback account. That's okay. Any chargeback you can choose for our testing. See, what are the accounts we are dealing? It could be payables or receivables or fixed assets, any application, the accounts what we are dealing across various scenarios or transaction creation. Please go through rapid implementation sheet and review what is the type of account. Just be aware of the account types. I'm not saying just go through all the accounts, whatever you have in the rapid implementation sheet, at least the accounts what we are using in our classes. Okay. At least whatever we are using in our test sessions to test various concepts. So those accounts you just go through and be aware. That would be good information for us. Say okay. Say save and close. Done. So we create a receivable activity for our business unit. Now we'll create one transaction with $25,000 and we'll run this scenario. So create transaction with $25,000. Say complete and close. Payment terms are immediate. Due date is today. Transaction number is 1004. Create receipt with only 5,000. Create receipt. Say receipt number or check number 1111. Received amount is $5,000. from Max customer. Say submit and apply. Now click on add open receivables. Transaction number is 1004. Search, select, click on add, say done. We applied $5,000. Still 20,000 is due it in the transaction. Let's just save it. So now we want to, customer is requesting to postpone the due date. So to postpone the due date, go to actions. Make sure you selected this transaction. Sometimes you may apply one receipt against multiple transactions. In that case, here you may find a big list of the transactions. So for which transaction you want to charge back the remaining amount with a new due date, select the transaction first, then go to actions. And here is one of the action called as create chargeback. One of the action is create chargeback. Click on create chargeback. The chargeback transaction type you have to select. As a part of setups, we created transaction type called as chargeback. Select is defaulting the distribution account. If you want to change, you can change. And set due date. Set due date. So we are just postponing to 31st. You may specify the reasons why you are doing the chargeback, or you can write the comments also as required. Then say save and close. Now, since we are performing the chargeback, see what system updated. Now there is no due amount here. It removed the due amount. With the same due amount, system will create the chargeback transaction. Now, as per this 1004, there should be 20,000 as a due. We charge back. It removed. Say save and close. We'll go and review the chargeback transaction which system created. Go to manage transactions. Select our customer. So here is a transaction which system created. The $20,000. This chargeback system created based on the original transaction 1004. Yes, system is using the transaction type which we specified as a ARP3 chargeback. But when you talk about source, we never created the source. Automatically system utilize the source which Oracle is providing. We just click on the transaction number to open the transaction. And here you can see automatically system is taking the payment terms as immediate to update the due date. If payment terms are mandatory, that is the reason it is taking. So due date is this. On this date, this is the immediate. Means with this date it is taking immediate means. So that date will become due date. So that's how we can create chargeback transactions as required. So chargeback. The next topic is on account receipt. So already we discussed what does it mean by on account receipt. If any excess amount from the customer that you can move to customer account as on account receipt, that amount will not be available to apply on any other transactions until unless you release that amount from on account. So we'll take the case. Say the transaction amount is $9,000. The amount what we received from customer is 10,000. So we'll create receipt with 10,000. So when you contact your customer may says, keep that amount in my account. We can adjust on future transactions. That is a one case. Other case could be customer may ask to refund that amount. Now we are going to see how we can move this $1,000 to the customer account, which is excess amount. Later we'll test how that amount we can refund to the customer. So to test on account receipt, let's create transaction with 9,000 and create receipt with the 10,000. Or else we have few transactions which are open transactions that also we can use. But anyway, for our case testing, let's use this data to create the to run the scenario. So create transaction with $9,000. So 9,000 transaction. Now create a receipt with 10,000. Receipt amount is $10,000. Select customer. Submit and apply. Now click on add open receivables to find out outstanding transactions. So now if you want to see the chargeback also, you have to enable the checkbox as a include chargeback, include debit memos, include credit memos. When you are searching for the transactions with this customer name, if you don't enable these relevant checkboxes, you don't see that relevant transactions. By default, system will fetch invoice transactions. Along with invoice transactions, if you want to see chargeback, debit memos, and credit memos, whatever we created, enable the checkboxes and say search. And even if you want to see closed transaction means the transactions where already receipts are applied. Once you apply the receipt of the transaction, the transaction will become closed. You have a transaction with the 10,000, you create a receipt with the 10,000, you applied receipt on the transaction. Yes, the transaction is treated as closed. Even if you want to see those transactions, enable the relevant checkbox. Search. So these are the outstanding transactions. Now we planned to apply that receipt amount on transaction number 1005. Receipt amount is 10,000. Applied amount is 9,000. Unapplied amount is 1,000. So this 1,000 we need to move to customer account. To move to customer account, just we may save. Go to actions and select more. Click on create on account application. It means the unapplied amount what we have here, this amount system will move to on account. When amount is in on account, that you cannot apply on any other transactions until unless you release it to unapplied amount. So click on create on account application. Now you want to move $1,000 to on account, only $500 that you can update as required and say okay. Save it. Now there is no amount as unapplied. Let's move to on account. Scroll it till down. The same record also you can see. Just we move that amount to on account. Now if you want to apply this amount on any transaction, not possible. So whenever you want to apply this amount on any other transaction, you have to come back to the same receipt and you have to select this on account record and you have to say unapply application. Now the amount is released, again available as a unapplied. Again you may move to on account or you can use this amount to adjust another transaction due amount. So this is a concept which we call as on account. So we'll see how to create miscellaneous receipt. If you get any miscellaneous revenue into organization, why we are receiving that revenue, that we have to record in the system. Mostly we get the revenue based on our core business activities. Maybe you are providing services, you are supplying the goods. Apart from this core business, if you generate any miscellaneous revenues in the organization, such kind of revenue related amounts you enter through miscellaneous receipt. To create the miscellaneous receipt, we need one receivable activity. And already we discussed, in case of miscellaneous receipt, no customer, no transaction. Directly we have to record the receipt. So why we are receiving that miscellaneous revenue into organization, there should be reason. With that reason, create receivable activity. So first we have to create the reason whatever the amount you are entering in the system as a miscellaneous receipt, that amount need to be posted against which account. The account should be relevant account based on the reason. Then you can create miscellaneous receipt. So you have a various reasons why you receive the miscellaneous revenue into organization. Yes, you can create multiple receivables activities. You can create multiple receivable activities. Say you just sometimes you sell old furniture, sometimes you sell like computer related stuff, sometimes you sell some stuff related to papers. From all these activities, you get some revenue, which is miscellaneous. If you want to capture activity wise, yes, create those many receivable activities. Say some paper stuff sales, one receivable activity, furniture stuff sales, computer stuff sales. This is how you can create multiple receivable activities so that your client will be able to capture the miscellaneous revenue exactly they generated because of which activity. Or else you can create one receivable activity, any miscellaneous revenue you will post to that account. So that's how the business can take the decision, and we have to create in the system according. Now we'll go and create one receivable activity, then we'll see how the miscellaneous receipt can be created against receivables activity. So go to receivables activities. Activity name, you may give as TR3 miscellaneous revenue, or else you can write the specific reason. Furniture sale, computer sale, that is not your business. It's old furniture and old computers that you can write. Accordingly you can choose relevant account. So this receivable activity name could be old furniture sale. Then here take old furniture revenue from old furniture, you take that account. So here what you are giving, you are providing some document service that is not your core business. Sometimes you may do it. So here you can say like miscellaneous revenue from documentation services. You can write the name. Here you have to select the account related to same. Miscellaneous revenue from document services. So that's how you can create multiple receivable activities. Make sure you are maintaining the separate account for every activity. So select activity type as miscellaneous cash. And here you select just value as a none and provide relevant account. First we'll try with account. So based on activity name we given as a miscellaneous revenue. If it is a specific name, accordingly you can look for the account. We have account called as miscellaneous revenue. Select the same. Check with this account any code combination is available. No combination. Let's create. say save and close. See, sometimes the miscellaneous revenue, okay, the miscellaneous revenue what we get, that amount you may want to distribute. First, let's complete this. Let's save and create another. The miscellaneous revenue, whatever you get, that you may want to distribute. Miscellaneous revenue. Now, what we did, we are taking into one account only. One GL account we are using. But your requirement is you want to take into, you want to distribute that miscellaneous revenue into multiple accounts. So in that case, what you can do is GL account source you select as a distribution set. Now you don't need to give account. Create distribution set and you select here. Okay, create distribution set in receivables, not payables. Create distribution set. Select the distribution set. When you talk about distribution set, how it works, we know. There we give account and percentage. So we can use distribution set in receivables to distribute the miscellaneous revenue what we get when you sell something to any party. Just make a note of this point. So we can use the distribution set. Here you have to select distribution set. Then you have to create the distribution set. There you give account and percentage. And here you can have a account activity type as a miscellaneous cash. And you can just create receivable activity with distribution set also. That's it. So we create a receivable activity. Let's create miscellaneous revenue. Okay, let's create miscellaneous revenue. So go to receipt creation page. Go to receipt creation page. Say create receipt. And receipt type is by default standard. So select receipt type as a miscellaneous. When you select receipt type as a miscellaneous, the fields are updated if you notice. If you select receipt type as standard, you can see the fields for standard, customer, and all the name, everything is open. If I select miscellaneous, so customer information is not required. Customer details are not required. So you are receiving miscellaneous revenue. If you are receiving revenue from your regular customers, customer can be one-time customer also. If it is related to your business related transaction, sale, then you have to record the standard receipt. Since miscellaneous, no customer. So all the customer name and all the fields are freezed. Now select receipt method. How you are receiving the payment from the party? You sold some old furniture to somebody. How you received payment from them? If it is a cash, go to receipt class, create one payment method as a cash that you can select. If you are receiving in the form of check, yes, select receipt method as check. Enter receipt number. And why we received, say, $50. We received $50. Why we received this $50? That you can select receivable activity. Now this $50 will be posted against this account which is available in this receivable activity. Okay, so we are posting this $50 to this receivable activity. Within the receivable activity we have a account. So if $50 you received because of furniture sale, exactly you want to post to furniture sale related account. old furniture sales, select your receivable activity as a miscellaneous revenue from old furniture. So that's how the amount you can post to relevant receivable activity. So that's all, no customer. But you may write the details here. Paid by whom? Paid by Mr. X. And if you have any proof for the payment related, you may attach the proof, or you may write the comments also. So save and close. So this is how we can create the miscellaneous receipt without any customer and no transaction. We'll see how to create the receipt using the spreadsheet. When you create the receipts through spreadsheet, the process we call as batch receipts. So we are going to create multiple receipts at a time. The first step, we create receipts in receipt batch, or as batch you can say. That receipt batch you can create in the spreadsheet. When you say spreadsheet, again that is ADFDI functionality. It is not like offline spreadsheet like FBDA template. It is online. So how we created invoices in the payables through ADFDI spreadsheet, the same way we create the receipts. Next, after creating the receipts, we have to import a receipt batch into receivables. After importing, if you want to apply those receipts on the transaction, it is a mandatory. We have to post it. Post receipt batch. So create receipts in receipt batch, import the receipts into receivables as a batch, post receipt batch, then you can apply receipts. It could be batch receipts or normal receipts, standalone. Yes, we can apply. Let's look into this process. No additional setups are required. So we have to go to that receipt batch related spreadsheet and we can execute this process. Okay. So here, the accounts receivables, we are in the account receivables workbench, nothing but receipt workbench. Go to task list. And here we have one task called as create receipts in spreadsheet. The task name is create receipts in spreadsheet. Click on the same task. Save on the desktop. Now, on this, here is the sheet which we downloaded. So the file name is create receipt batch. If required, click on enable editing. Now we are going to connect to the instance. Say yes. We don't need any latest version. Let's skip. So our BU is defaulting since the user got access to this BU. And we created a batch source as a part of setups. We created receipt source that we are going to use here. Select receipt source. Batch name. As per the spreadsheet, they are giving as a batch name. Reality, it is a batch number. I'm giving number as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here they are giving as a name. Once this data will go to instance, there you see field name as a batch number. That is the reason here itself we are giving as a batch number. Now select receipt method under bank account details. Just double click. So we create it as a ERP check. Select and say OK. Select remittance bank under bank account details. Now, since we are creating receipts in the batch, how many receipts we want to create, you can enter the count as well as total amount for all the receipts. You can enter the count. Say I want to enter 2 receipts. Now system is this spreadsheet is displaying the difference is 2. We have planned to enter 2, 2 are not entered. How much amount? Say $50,000. So now the difference is 2 receipts and 50,000. Once we start entering, system will update how many receipts are entered, how much amount is entered, still how much difference is there between planned and actual. So here we can create the receipt record. Give sequence number as 1 just for unique identification number. So receipt number 1122. Receipt amount say $45,000. Accounting date, you can take the today's date, copy and paste from the same spreadsheet, scroll little right and select customer details. The customer details are not mandatory. Reason, receipt we can create without customer also. That receipt is treated as an unidentified receipt. That already we have seen in the last session. So double click. Select the customer. Say customer name is Max. Find out. Select. Say OK. Select customer site. Okay, done. The rest of fields optional. Let's create one more receipt. Now here you can notice planned receipts are 2, entered 1, still difference is 1. Planned amount is for this entire batch is 50, entered amount is 45, still 5,000 difference. Enter receipt number. Amount is $5,000. Accounting date. You can copy and paste this data. The same customer. So that's all. Now we entered multiple receipts in the receipt batch. Here there is no difference. Now create receipt batch. Here is the menu option. Click on create receipt batch and click on upload. Click on upload. Say OK. On failure, continue to upload subsequent rows. If you have multiple rows, means multiple receipts here. If one record is going to fail, what about remaining records? Yes, it has to proceed. Say OK. So status is row inserted successfully. Now go to application. Just refresh this page. That batch you will be able to see here only. Batch we can see here. See, this is the first. The info tile is related to receipt batches. But here we don't see the batch what we created. Just refresh this page. You'll be able to find the batch here. Here is the batch what we created. See, as per application, it's a batch number. That is the reason we given the number also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But as per this sheet, it's a batch name. But in the application, it's not name. The application field name is number. Fine. Now select this batch. Within the batch, we have 2 receipts. Total amount is 50,000. Select the batch and click on post. If you post, then only the receipts would be available for application. Post. Means we are confirming. That's all. Just refresh this page. Now batch got posted. Now those receipts you can apply on any other transaction. Go to manage receipts. We created receipt like 1122. Check. This is our receipt. 45,000. Open this receipt. Now this 45,000 receipt you can apply on transaction. Select one by one. Add. Next transaction also add and say done. So $45,000 applied. So save and close. So done. So that's how we can create the receipts by using spreadsheet, which we call as receipt batch. Batch receipts. Batch receipts. Now, we discussed about the receipt reversal. Whenever you reverse the receipt, if you want to reverse the application and you want to reopen the transaction, that we call as standard receipt reversal. Whenever you reverse the receipt, instead of reopening the closed transaction, you want to create the new transaction that we call as debit memo receipt reversal. So we'll see first standard receipt reversal. To test the standard receipt reversal, what we will do is we'll create one transaction with the $5,000 and we'll create receipt with 5,000. We apply this 5,000, then we'll reverse. We'll reverse the receipt, then again the transaction will reopen. Let's see this. Create transaction with $5,000. You can use existing transactions, no issues, or else existing receipt application also you can use to reverse it. So instead of that, just it's a simple process. Let's create separate transaction. $5,000. Complete and close. Transaction number is 1006. Now create receipt with the 5,000. Yes, we received payment from the customer in the form of check. Go to accounts receivable. Create receipt. We received $5,000. Say submit and apply. Click on add open receivables and transaction number 1006. Customer paid for this transaction. Search, select, add and say done. We received only check, but we are confirming the application also because we are trusting or we are expecting the check for sure it will get cleared. So we did this and we submitted check to the bank and it got bounced. Now the receipt what we created and applied, that is not applicable. So we have to reverse it. Find the receipt, open the receipt. Now the 5,000 receipt is applied on this 5,000 transaction. Balances are 0, but now we are going to reverse. System will reopen the transaction. Now if you go to transaction workbench, there you can see amount as a 0 outstanding. Go to manage transactions. The transaction number is 1006. Open this transaction. Go to actions. Click on view balance details. The original amount is $5,000. Receipt is created with 5,000. The balance amount is 0. The original amount is 5,000. Since we applied the receipt, the same amount reduced. Now there is no due against this transaction. Now we are going to reverse. That system will reopen. So go to actions, say reverse. Say reverse. Why we are reversing? The reason related category you select here. So we submitted check to the bank. Bank identified no funds in the customer account. The detailed reason also you specify. The detailed reason also same. No funds in the customer account. Now click on reverse. Scroll little down. Even no transaction here. System remove the transaction from receipt application. Now the receipt status is reversed. Now if you go and check the transaction, just reopen. Otherwise, the balances cannot be updated. Now view balance details. Now no receipt. Earlier there was one receipt applied. Now the receipt got reversed. Now you can look at the transaction. The outstanding amount is $5,000. So this is how we can reverse. Now anyway, we have a transaction with 5,000 as a unpaid amount, and we'll create receipt. Okay, we'll create the separate receipt and we'll apply. Then we'll perform debit memo receipt reversal. Let's create one receipt with $5,000. Create receipt with $5,000. So customer is Max Corporation. Okay, amount is $5,000. Submit and apply. Click on add open receivables. The transaction number is 1006. It's open transaction since the receipt got reversed. Save it. Now we submitted check to bank, it got bounced. Now this receipt also we have to reverse. So go to reverse and non-sufficient funds category, and reason also non-sufficient funds. Now if we click on reverse, system will reopen the transaction again, but I don't want to reopen. With the same amount, system should create separate transaction. The transaction will be debit memo transaction. To create it, enable debit memo reversal. Select the transaction type as a debit memo, and you may just update the account or you can accept the same. You can keep that account as it is. Even if you create debit memo, system should take receivables account only. Now click on reverse. Now if you look at this receipt, the receipt is showing it's a confirmed, and even this application, just what we have, it remain as it is. remain as it is. So it will create separate transaction called as debit memo. We'll go and see that. Go to manage transactions. Select our customer. Check. Here is the transaction. System created debit memo reversal. Based on the reversal, it created debit memo transaction. Transaction class is debit memo. Transaction type is debit memo with $5,000. The description you can see debit memo reversal. System is using memo line which is created by Oracle. So this is how we can reverse and reopen the transaction. When you reverse, if you don't want to reopen, you can open the new transaction with debit memo transaction type, which we call as debit memo reversal concept. So that's all about standard receipt reversal, debit memo receipt reversal. So that's all for today. Tomorrow session will follow the queue. Whatever we have in the queue will follow the same. So any questions from anyone, please. You can unmute and ask.
Sir, is it not then better to do debit memo reversal versus doing a standard reversal? At least by that way, we have a track of what happened.
Yeah, that see the ultimate results are same, but how you want to manage, you can do that. You can just reopen or you can just do separately as you mentioned, like if you want to have a track, you can go with a debit memo reversals, or else it's okay, like you don't need to track separately, you don't need to identify, it's a rare case, then you can go with a standard receipt reversal.
Okay, thank you.
End result is same. End result is same. That's a business decision. The flexibility Oracle is giving, how they want to do it. Any questions, please?
Uh, so we are having different stages in the receipt, like unidentified, unapplied, applied amount. So in these cases, what are the accounting entries generated?
To submit, you create, we discussed right in the last session, I created
Mm,
a receipt without customer, right?
yeah.
System
Mm,
displayed the balances as unidentified balances. So that time you create accounting entry. You will see that entry. Next, select the customer, right?
mm,
And
okay.
keep amount on account. Keep
Okay.
amount as unapplied. You apply.
Mm,
The various stages, you just submit the accounting. Accordingly, system will create entry, and when you are changing the statuses accordingly, it will be reversing and it will be passing to the next account.
okay. So
You
in
try,
case
it's
of
a doable.
miscellaneous,
That is the reason I'm not. Anyway, already we have seen that accounting and all. You just create receipt based on the status, submit, create accounting. It will generate the accounting. It will derive the accounts from where, as per our discussion.
auto accounting rules and
No, no, no,
uh,
no.
uh,
From
no.
receipt method. We are talking about receipt,
Okay. Okay.
right? When you talk about receipt, it takes
Mm,
accounts from the receipt method. When you talk about transaction, it
mm.
derives the accounts from auto accounting rules. That's the
Oh,
difference.
okay.
Yeah. When you are testing, you can try that. Yeah.
Mm. Miscellaneous receipt accounting starts from in the receipt there itself. All
Yes.
right. Okay.
Everything you test it. See, if there is no
Mm.
flexibility, yes, we can do it. So it's very much doable. You can just try. Any other
Okay.
questions, please?
Sir, can I ask a question on payable side?
Let me take the
Sure.
questions from today class. Yeah, then we can discuss. Yeah. Any questions on today's session, please?
While creating any transactions as part of the invoice level, why can't we change the payment terms manually at the transaction level? We have a flexibility to change the payment terms,
Yes.
right?
Yes, we have a flexibility. When we are creating, we have flexibility. Once we create, once we apply the amount, when you do some activity, then like you cannot incomplete the transaction. Right? That is
Okay.
reason just we performed activity called as chargeback.
But any transaction level, you have any flexibility to change the payment terms for that transaction, right?
Yes,
That,
yes. We are creating transaction. Yes, any payment term you can anytime you can change the payment term during the transaction creation. System is defaulting the payment terms from the customer.
Okay.
We keep that in the customer profile class. From profile class, it will default to the customer record. From customer record to transaction. We can modify. We can change.
Okay. Thank you.
That means we can override. Yes. Any other questions on today's session? No questions. Now we can proceed with the payables related questions.
Yes, sir. So in this very instance, I did set up the payables, and when creating the supplier and the supplier address, when I create the address, it goes for approval. And
Okay.
I did try to tell it to be automatic, but it still did not work.
No, I got you. I got you. So you created profile, supplier
Yeah.
profile, right?
Yes.
You
Yes.
created address.
Yes.
Then when you are creating site, it is going for approval.
Correct. Right. No, so before site, I cannot add site because address itself is going for approval.
Oh,
So
okay.
site, the plus sign doesn't work.
Okay. So if it is going for approval, what you can do is disable the approvals. Go to offerings. Go to offerings. Then go to procurement offering. Opt-in features. So here supplier level, you can just go to edit features. Now we have one of the feature called as approve internal changes on supplier profile. Click on edit. So address approvals are required. Disable it. Even if you provide supplier bank account also, approvals required. Disable all this. For site also, approvals not required. Disable all these checkboxes. Say save and close.
Thank you.
Now, if you create the customer record, it could be profile address or site, bank account details update. It will not look for any approvals. So this is set at offering level related features. That means it is applicable for entire instance.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, now you can try, it will work. Any other questions? Yeah, somebody unmuted, but no voice.
I think we can do from tools and transaction console also this approval method, sir. That is another way.
Tools, transaction
Console.
console. See, transaction console just to review the approvals, not to perform any setups.
So there we can bypass the approval, right?
No, bypassing not, just there you can review like for which transactions that approvals are triggering, you can get more review over there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So that's all for today. We'll catch up tomorrow, same time. Thank you all.
Thank you.